Today's episode is from the vault, as they say. This is a conversation between me and one of the best sales managers I ever had on my team, a guy named Todd Messner. And Todd has had multiple sales manager positions before and after the time that he and I worked together. Todd is the one who sat down with me one day and said, "Hey, Wayne, how did our successful salespeople ramp up? How did they grow? How did they go from nothing in their territory to a thriving group of clients who month after month sell and contribute to them? How will I know if one of my salespeople I hire and who I'm coaching is on track?" And my honest answer to him at that time was, Todd, I don't exactly know. And so he and I sat at his kitchen table and we went back through data and we created ramp-up reports. And ramp-up reports helped the whole rest of the company know if the people we were hiring were on track and what were the very important things that they would have to do in the beginning that would prove a high likelihood of success later on. So in this conversation, we talk about how Todd would coach people who were in trouble and get them back on track, or realize if it just wasn't a great fit for them. Many of the business builders I talked to, first of all, have not been in professional sales organizations where they had formal training. And so you will glean from Todd ideas for yourself if you're still selling. On the other hand, many business builders get to a point where they are successful selling, but then they're having a hard time hiring salespeople, getting them to a point where they are self-sufficient and where they're really contributing and they're more than break even. And even harder still is to build a whole team of those people. You will get valuable, actionable advice from Todd Messner in this interview, and I'm excited to share it with you. Welcome to the Business Builder Way podcast, where we help business builders grow leadership skills and wisdom and stay grounded through hero stories. So let's get after it.
In our history working together, you were a highly effective sales manager. You took a squad of people that were in place and you made that group better. You were able to, some of the people that were probably not a good fit, you were able to move them on. And some of the people who were not super performers yet, you improved their performance, you hired new ones, and then you also were able to say to me, hey, here's what I think we need in the whole process that we don't have. So whenever I talk about having sales managers on my team that just took the ball and ran with it, you were it. And I think that a lot of business owners or VPs of sales, if they had an effective sales manager that owned the role, would benefit. So that's the context for what we're talking about, is owning the role and how you did that.
So as far as positions, and I don't even know how many you remember. So I've been in and out of management since, I was in high school, basically. And you pick up bits and pieces from each one, learn how to apply them. The majority of most of my management roles were with a tobacco. Started there, just was a field sales representative. I thought I had an advantage with that, being that I had a retail background with several different jobs while I was working in high school. With the first 2 years, they made me a training and development manager. That was the person that when they hired someone in the United States for an entry-level position, that was the person that went in and worked with them and got them started, and would sit down with them. The first week or two was mainly sitting in a room going over policies, procedures, forms, reports, that thing. And then you slowly put them out in the field and taught them product knowledge, market knowledge, focus, what the company was looking for. Leave them on their own for a little bit, come back in, work with them a few days, leave them on their own for a little bit longer, come back in, work with them, provide some guidance, have a plan in place, show them where they're at in the development plan. After that, kind of moved up to training and development supervisor, which almost the same position, but instead of being out in the field, I was the one actually writing the policies and the procedures and doing all the kind of behind the scenes stuff. When you hire a new person, getting all the policies and procedures, manuals, credit cards, company cars, contingency funds, all that type of stuff organized, making sure that the development plan that's in place for everybody was being followed, and then also working with the new product and development manager that's actually out in the field to keep track of where everybody is in the progress. From there, the next step up was a regional sales manager. It was over 5 states. And as a regional sales manager, your people at that point are moving from more of a retail sales into account sales. So they're starting to call on small chains, small distributors, things like that. So it's a little bit different type of a sell. So you're teaching them more fundamentals of Excel and PowerPoint, how to use the computer, how to read market data, Nielsen reports, how to compile all that into a compelling story, and to be able to go into an account and present it in a way that's convincing to the buyer to bring on your products and promote your products. From there, I went on to the national account team. The gentleman who was running the national account team was trying to recruit me for about a year and a half. So I ended up on the national account team, was basically just a national account manager for about a year. Then they made me a senior national account manager. The role of senior national account manager was to have your key accounts throughout the country, but then also train the new sales managers. Basically, what I ended up becoming was, when we had people that not living up to their potential, they pretty much give them to me, and I would work with them and try to develop them to the point where they can be effective. I was in that position for a couple of years.
So at that point, you have people that are directly working on your team, and you're getting them out there to do prospecting, to find new accounts, to get the buyers to take on your product. And then you also have this role where you get the experience of having some individuals that need some like extra help or extra attention, and you're the guy that works really closely with them.
In fact, the director would come to me, and there were a lot of times they would go into the executive committee and try to make a presentation which wasn't very effective, and they would get themselves on the not so good list. He would come to me and say, okay, this is your job to save their career. This is their last straw. Work with them, see if you can develop
them. Find the door.
Exactly.
Like a little bit of like, how do you do that when you have a person who needs help?
To be honest with you, at that point, Wayne, we were a combination of 3 different companies that had been merged together, 3 different specialty companies. So everybody's background and in how they were developed and trained was different. And I know one of the companies, the training wasn't so formal. It was pretty much informal, throw you out in the field, let you sink or swim. I think everybody that worked for me wanted to be successful. I just don't think they knew how. I didn't have a whole lot of occasions where it was a matter of effort. I think they were willing to put in the hard work and willing to learn. They just needed somebody to show them. So I think in that way, I was fairly lucky and had a little bit of advantage over some people. Every once in a while, there was a person that it was just plain lack of initiative. I mean, we just helped them find their way out.
That's good. And so there's things you learned as you went that apply and that are not, it may seem obvious to you, but is worth pulling out. It's the idea that when there's somebody who's not performing, and no matter how you come across them, a professional sales manager knows that there's 2 things. First, I have to determine, do they want to be successful? Do they have drive? Do they have desire? Is the want to there? And then if the want to is there, then you could work on the how to, but it takes a lot of close work on the how to do it. It's not like you can't just get frustrated if they're not doing it. It doesn't necessarily mean they don't want to. Slow down, take your time, really see what you got.
A lot of communication, which I think is key in pretty much all the different roles that I played. So I was in constant communication with them, even though we were different parts of the country. There were times that we had daily phone calls about strategies, how they're going to go into an account, what they're going to present, how they're going to go about presenting it, what did the presentation look like, what are they thinking, where are the areas of opportunity, how did they determine where the areas of opportunity, all that type of stuff. We were trying to get them on the same mindset as the rest of them. I was always fairly comfortable that I was always on the same mindset as the people that I reported to, and the vice president of sales or director or CEO, whoever that happened to be. The next position was a channel manager. So at that point, the industry was changing. It was all about industry data and information. He who had the best information and most current information would win. So the industry was shifting where the buyers didn't have enough time to research everything. So they would look for what they called category captains. If you could provide the most accurate information in a fair and accurate way to help them and basically do parts of their job for them, they would almost turn the category over to you. They would just supervise, and it was up to you to develop planograms for their store sets by using the most current information and positioning them to take advantage of any market trends. But with that, management has to understand too, with that, you do have to have a commitment to them that even if the information doesn't really support a lot of your brands, you still have to go with the information. So you can't really take advantage of the situation. You've got to commit to the whole philosophy, and in the long run, as a company, you'll make out. That was a whole change of thinking. So we put together teams based by channels. We had a grocery team, a mass market team, a convenience team. We had a institutional team that actually called on prisons. That was about a third of our business. And we developed our team members. I had 6 individuals on the team that we called on the largest convenience store chains in the country. So they were calling on the Exxon Mobils and the BPs and the Circle Ks that have thousands of stores. So everything had to be very professional, all the presentations, all heading more and more towards kind of strategic account management philosophy. So you're looking at accounts, financial health before you dive in with 2 feet and start investing with them and putting your time to them. So that was a whole different way of thinking. We were very successful in that across almost all the channels. We were able to pass by our competitors. From there, they were having some issues with the field sales and the production of field sales, again, back to the people out in the field. So they recruited myself and the director to come back in and be over top of the field sales to get them back on the right track. With that, I was over the Western United States, and we were mainly working with the regional managers. So we were training the trainers. Again, we were a combination of 3 different companies, so everybody had different backgrounds. Some had more skills as far as account management and basically data analysis. Again, the whole industry was going more and more towards data. We worked very hard with all the managers to develop their skills and worked with them into how to develop their people's skills as far as focusing the resources, both financial and personnel, to get the biggest bang for our bucks. After that, I kind of moved on to a different company. I was sales director, and that was for a small distributor. But with that company, it was open role. It was all about growing business. All the positions were. It's got to be the main focus. You always are looking to, how can you grow business? How can I get more leads? How can I keep the pipeline filled? How can I improve my people? I would tell people when I was even training, it's all about educating them. I would never feel successful unless my people were successful. If I can get them to be a little more successful, it was all about increasing their chances of success. So if they're going in and making 10 presentations and getting 3 sales, my job, I felt, was always to get that 3 sales and increase that 3 up to 6, then 8, then 9, and all the way up to, can they be successful in every single one of their calls in some way? So
that's about improving their closing rate or their effectiveness when they're in the actual selling situation.
Increasing their probability for success. A lot of
How
people
about
would always...
Go ahead. A lot of people would always...
A lot of the people that I worked with thought they were successful. And then we would sit down and start analyzing it and go, yeah, you are successful. You're successful 40% of the time. But let's shoot for 50, then 60, then 70. It's going to help you with your career. It's going to help you with financially and bonuses and commissions. And you just present it in a logical way. We were fairly successful. Most people bought into the plan, which is a big part of it, making sure that they feel that they can trust you and that you're looking out for their best interest and trying to help them become successful. And I guess that's how we approached it. In the sales
So that's really good. As you, Todd, and therefore, to me, like a highly effective sales manager that a business owner would want to hire, has this mindset. One thing we already pointed out is you look at people who are underperforming and you figure out first, do they want to? If they do, then I'll help them with how to do it, and I'll coach them. It'll take a lot of time. Even if I'm far away, I'm going to have to get in there with them and be close with them and walk with them as they grow. So that's one thing. And then this next thing is, you said, my main focus and how I think about things is always, how can I grow business? How can I grow business? And how can I grow it through the people on my team, not through you? And one of the differences is a manager, a guy like you, wants to grow business through the team and the process, not through your own exploits. You're not looking to be the hero. It's your people are the heroes. You feel successful when your people are successful. And you talked about right there, this is important, that there are people on your team that think they are successful. And so one of the first things you have to do is help them see, like, not tear them down and say, well, actually, you're not all that, but help them see that there's even more possibility. And sure, maybe they're successful, but there's so much more. So that's interesting. That's an interesting trait. That's how you look at folks, is there's always more.
Yeah. And then in all these positions involved networking, recruiting, and hiring good people starts there too. As part of the team, you're always going to have some turnover. Got to be prepared for that turnover and look ahead. Try to keep our pipeline as far as personnel filled and try to recruit the right people and hire the right people. And we've done that. We've tried different ways with different companies. I've always liked to, in an interview, anybody that's interviewed for a good amount of time, after a while you get tired of hearing the canned answers and the rehearsed answers. I think it's the second and third follow-up questions where you really start understanding and getting the real answers from the person. But I always tried to identify certain traits. And one of them I've always been big on is competitiveness. I wanted to find that person that just hated to get beat. And maybe that's because it's how I always felt out there. Couldn't stand having our competitors beat us in anything. So it was always driving to outdo our competitors, be better than them, sell more than them, get better placements on the shelf than them, get better ads than them, build up a better relationship with the accounts than them. So that's one of the things that I always look for. And I know we got off on a little tangent here, but I think that the whole training and hiring the right people is a huge part of it too.
Yeah. Background, and that's where you're working, that's what you're doing. How about when we met and you came into, because it's a part of your story that I know the best and maybe I don't, because my memory may be different than what actually happened, or I didn't certainly always know exactly what was going on.
As far as, are you talking about the team, or there are lots of things going on at that point in my life?
Yeah, shortly thereafter.
As far as the team, it was really interesting coming in, taking over that team. We had a lot of variety in the type of people and the personalities that were on the team. That was actually a challenge. That was a challenge when you have a team like that. The previous manager, I think he was a really nice guy. I think he was effective. I think at times he let other people on the team run it. I think he fell into that trap a little bit to be the nice guy, wanted to be everyone's friends. We had a mix. You had your typical underperformer. I had a guy, and I don't know if you want me to leave the names out or not. I had a guy who
probably the underperformer.
He was a great source for technical information for me. In fact, I would call and lean on him a lot when I knew that I didn't have the technical background. So I'd call him. He just kind of lacked some of the basic selling skills. He knew the basics. He could be improved by developing his sales skills because he had the background, he had the knowledge, and he was willing to do that. We had a gentleman who I always called him everybody's friend, loved to gab out there, hard worker, didn't care about working hard, work his ass off. But again, he was relationship driven, pretty much unfocused, wasn't quite sure how to move the sales process along. Probably didn't even look at things as a sale process. I think a lot of times people would agree to things that he said just to move him out the door onto the next place. It wasn't an issue with effort or desire. It was more just keeping him focused and understanding sales process and how to move things along. We had a couple people that were very successful. One was extremely hard worker, very opinionated. She would say what's on her mind, no filter, very relationship driven, but very successful. The relationship portion of it was driven, but you had to understand that part of her because that kind of went into how to manage her and how she fit in on the team. One gentleman who pretty much was the alpha guy of the team. He's very successful, very opinionated, wanted control of everyone and everything, and manipulative. He knew, and I don't even know if he knew he was doing it, but he was. He'd know how to manipulate things. I think previous to coming there, I think he ran the team. So you had to kind of understand all those personalities and how you would have to work with each one in a little bit different way. The gentleman that was the alpha was probably the biggest challenge because the others were followers previously, so they would get in off of him. And he could take things pretty negative at times, so you had to nip that in the bud before it got started. You had to build his trust, had to twist things a little bit so he make them sound like they're his ideas and then get him to buy into that. And then get him to help motivate the rest of the team. Again, it was just understanding how each person's personality is and how to use that to better the team. That whole different mix of people was a challenge to begin with, especially some of the ones with the very, very strong personalities. I don't know if it ever stops becoming a challenge. You got to stay on top of it constantly and watch how they're affecting the others on the team. And I think as long as he would be fairly open to open conversations. You could sit down and talk to him about it at times. And he'd be fairly realistic. He wouldn't blow his top or anything. And at times I would think he maybe didn't realize what he was doing. Or maybe he was smarter than me and manipulating me at that point. A little bit of, anyhow, that was a big challenge in just understanding the different personalities on the team and different ways that they learn and get motivated.
Good. So this is, first of all, it's fun walk down memory lane. It is funny not using names because I know exactly who you're talking about, and it like takes me back and puts me in the space a bit. And even the sales manager before was a nice guy and not so sure it was effective. That really was the case. And it's completely okay to have a little fun, by the way, just to say to you, you come in and you're working with me, and the thing about a sales manager is you're stuck in the middle. That's what I'm saying. It's okay to say anything. You're not going to offend me. You're stuck in the middle, and you're like trying to get your bearings. You come onto this new team that wasn't yours, and it's really good. It shows partly why you're so effective is because you really pay attention to people and you study them and you see what's going on. And at the same time, you're very metric driven, and the company, me at that point, is saying, I don't know, we need more sales in some way, shape, or form. You got to get these people shaped up. You got to learn what's going on. You got to get more new accounts signed up. We got to do prospecting. That's our problem. You got to get them out there prospecting, stuff like that. Can you recollect being in the middle? And you've been in the middle a bunch of times in your career.
Some of the guys that were the people that were relationship driven, they would sign up lots of people, but then they wouldn't get them to write any contracts. They would have all these people on the books and had that problem converting them over to actual business. And a lot of it was because they were relationship driven and they weren't following the sales process or didn't know how to. And again, we're all being pushed to expand business and bring on new customers. But again, you want quality customers. It was a kind of a learning experience for them and myself, actually, to try to balance everything.
How do you get people in a situation like that? How do you help them as their manager? What are you looking for to get them out? I end up having a lot of clients where they would like their people to get out and go develop new business and push into new areas and meet new people. How do you help the people on your team do that?
I think there are a couple ways. I always like to lead by example. When I'd be with them, I wouldn't let them drive by places. Hey, what's that place over there? Oh, that's just so-and-so. Come on, let's wheel in there. Let's go talk. I've already talked to him before. Fine, you want me to do it? I'll talk to him this time. Let's both go in and just kind of see what's up. There were times where I'd go in and take the lead and then try to pass it off to them. There were times that they would go in and I would just help out a little bit. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. The idea was, first of all, lead by example and then get them used to not driving by places, not having preconceived notions of places. Always loved when they would think this place wouldn't be worth it and you'd go in and talk to them and find out it's a miniature gold mine that they had a preconceived notion about, and we could end up selling them and turning them into some business. That was always awesome and prove your point and help to get them to buy into the program a little bit.
I learned the phrase God moment. Oh, it's a God moment. I walk in and ta-da, they're a great account.
Yeah, and that's a great learning tool for them. I always try to say it's all about education and all about them learning.
You're not afraid of prospecting, but some people are naturally, right? Like they have a certain fear about walking into new places and there's hesitation, and even though that's supposed to be their job, doing sales.
And I used to try to explain to them, I'm like, this really isn't a cold call. You're in the industry of whatever it may be. And likely they're already using somebody's service. It's just one of your competitors. To me, that's not even a cold call. It's a warm call. Maybe you don't know them, but they're already using a similar product or similar service. All you're doing is going in there and providing them a better option. And you're right. Some people, they have that natural fear and hesitation to do it. And if they can't avoid it, they do at times. So it's just getting them over that fear and understanding that, hey, you know what? It's not going to work 100% of the time. There are going to be places you walk in that aren't viable, but that's fine.
Do you ever get a little bit of fear yourself as a sales manager when you say, I'll take this one? Or have you ever role played with people and have a little bit of, especially with some of those like alphas on the team who come off as being like really excellent? How do you push through? I
think you got to be honest and you got to have a sense of humor because nobody's perfect. So if I go in and say, hey, I'm going to take this one and I screw it up somehow, to be honest about it, come out and say, okay, that didn't go so well. So let's sit down and talk about this. Let me evaluate myself here for you and tell you how I look at things every time I walk out of somewhere. What could I have done different? Is there something I should have seen? Is there some information I should have brought? Was I not prepared enough? So again, trying to take it, laugh at yourself, make it so it's not that big of a deal. But again, try to learn from it. Try to figure out what you can do differently differently next time. It happens. It happens to everybody. Still happens.
For sure. Hey, so a big part of some of the questions I was asking is if one of my clients were to hire their first sales manager who was going to really own the position, there was a couple of things I sent you ahead of time to think about. I wonder, is there anything there that you jotted down that you would maybe give advice to an owner getting their first sales manager? How could they support that person? Who are they looking for? Things like that.
Yeah, I think there's lots to go back, talk about the traits that we were looking at and hiring the correct people, identifying maybe what you want in the position. We used to do the Trimetrics reports. That gives you some insight.
Pre-hire assessment.
Yeah. So that'll give you some information. I don't think they're the Bible. I don't think they're 100% of the picture, but you can definitely use them as a tool to understand some of the strengths and maybe some of the areas that you'll have to work with and what you can expect out of this person. I think looking for someone that's competitive. I think communication is going to be really important. When you hire a sales manager, a true sales manager, they're going to want control of some things. As a VP or an owner, you're probably going to have to be prepared to give them some control, not to micromanage, open with them. Got to have communication. It's got to be a constant flow of communication so you're both on the exact same page. You have common goals. I think you need to be open to new ideas, kind of new ways of thinking, communicate and understand the roles and expectations for the position and for the teams up front. Nobody should ever be surprised. It should all be, everybody should be working on the same page, same notes, going the same direction with the same goals. And then somebody that's constantly looking to improve and develop themselves, their teams, the business, the products, the systems. I think the right person, when they look around, they see opportunity and they can identify the opportunity everywhere. Okay, geez, our system is taking this long. I think we can improve that. We can make that a little bit better. Here's some ideas. Or have we ever thought about doing this? Have we ever tried about doing that? So I think it's across all areas, all functions. Probably talk about this for hours. It's a lot involved. And I think that individual is not out there a ton, but it's going to take some searching to find the correct individual and match them up. So you got to have somebody that personalities are going to get along with the owners and the VPs.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's a special person that comes in and grabs up a team and says, this is my team, and I'm going to be accountable for them and their performance, and I'm going to help them and study them and push them and pull them and motivate them and take a look at metrics, things. It is a special person. It's hard to find. Hey, so I always tell people that you're the person that helped me develop ramp-up reports, and it was really your idea. Can you remember that?
I remember thinking to myself, and again, I was coming into an industry that I'd never been into before, so that was all new to me. We had lots of different personality types on the team. We were filling some open positions. We were trying to grow. And I remember thinking, okay, what is my benchmark? Do we have this kind of graphed out of where should a person be after 3 months, after 4 months, after 6 months? And how's the progression of that new candidate looking? Do I need to put more time into this person than that person? So I guess it was more thinking about those type of things. That conversation came up. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. That's how I remember it. And you asked me what's the right trajectory, and I said, you know what? I really don't know, but maybe we can figure that out. And we sat down and went through the computer and looked at some successful people who had built a territory and done from the ground up, from zero, going out, signing up their first accounts, getting them to actually produce their first business, and then getting those accounts to reach their potential. And in looking at that, it really revealed that if you get somebody new on the team, they must go out and have early success. Even if it's not the right accounts that they're signing up, they at least have to be the person that gets out there and gets after it and does something, even if they do it wrong. Then we have something to work with. If they don't go out and do something wrong, we've got no shot.
And then help them celebrate their small victory. Keep them focused, keep moving along the right path. So I guess that's how that conversation came. I was feeling at that point, okay, I've got these people. How am I as a manager to evaluate them at this point? Is this exact point in their training, if they're on track or if they're not on track?
Can you take 5 more minutes, or are you up against time?
No, I got about few more minutes.
How much time do you put into it as a sales manager? One thing, Todd, I run into is owners who are also wearing the CEO hat and the ownership hat. This was a slightly different question, but they have to play sales manager because somebody needs to play that role. You can't have a salesperson who has no sales leader, sales manager, even if the owner's busy, right? Have to do it. How much time does it take to work with when you bring somebody on board, you're the owner, how much time should you figure to be spending with that person?
You're talking with the sales manager?
If you're an owner who has to play, you hire a salesperson on your team. You're still the owner and you got to do all these other things, but you definitely need to lead that salesperson. You can't just let them out there and hope that they bring back business, right?
Right.
How much time should somebody figure on spending with a person that they bring on board as a salesperson?
Now, and I'm going to hate to be wishy-washy here, but I might be a little bit. I think some of that depends on industry and product knowledge. I've worked with a couple companies. I didn't work directly for them. I worked indirectly with them. That just due to the industry and product knowledge, they felt it took 2 years to develop a rep to be successful. They felt that that was pretty much the minimum. They were ready to be out on their own 100% with no guidance after about 2 years. But I've been in other industries where, after a few months, if you've got the right person, that person can be turned loose. But again, with guidance and shared.
How much time do I have to spend with them as their leader to get them going? How much time should I figure to budget in my week to be with that person, coaching, managing, developing them in the beginning?
I don't think you need to micromanage them. I think you need to have communication. I think you should plan on talking daily, asking a lot of questions, and stimulating conversation, stimulating thought to make sure that they're going in the right direction. But I don't think you need to dedicate a ton of time. Once the policies and procedures are learned and maybe product knowledge, the good person will motivate themselves and go out and find their own opportunities. But again, I think it's more of being available and being engaged with them, so that everything's a conversation, so they're fully aware of what they're doing without having to be on top of them or micromanage or watch their every move every day.
Bring you questions, and they want to bring things to you to get your input and have you help them.
And I was always concerned about the people that didn't ask questions. The people that asked a ton of questions were the ones that typically ended up successful. The people that I found that didn't ask any questions and that you didn't hear of were more than likely stumbling around out in the field and had a tendency to be less effective and less successful. And I always look forward to the questions. I would worry when we didn't get the questions. I would try to make sure I always had time to address their questions, sit down and talk.
Last question. How do you know when it's time to terminate somebody? And how do you handle it? Not how, logistics. How do you give them a last chance and know when it's time?
I've always been upfront with them. I've always been open and honest. If they were being viewed as not being successful as they need to be to continue with the job, I would try to be open and honest without affecting their self-confidence. Gray area, it's a really fine line. So you have to make sure that they know that you're going to do everything that you can to help them. But in turn, they've got to learn, they've got to work hard, go out. If it came down time to where it just wasn't working, you'd be open and honest. It doesn't seem to be what they want in their life. And most people, that's obvious, and most people will agree with it. If it comes down to that point and you're open and honest with them and say, is this really what you want to do? Most of them will come out and say, no, not really. I ever told anybody that they were fired. I just said, I think this is probably the right time that maybe you go look and find what makes you happy, and we just go different directions. And really, most of the people, as long as you do it respectfully, I think most of them react to it fairly, I hate to say positive.
Yeah, what you indicated is it's not like an event for you. It's just part of the ongoing helping people understand where they're at and what's going on. It really isn't. It's not that big of a thing for you because it's just all the way along. Dude, Todd, thank you. This is great.
Thank you for tuning into the Business Builder Way podcast. If this episode spoke to you, click that subscribe button and share it with a friend. That's how this message gets out into the world. If it is helpful for us to have a short conversation, I'd love to do that. Send me an email at wayne@businessbuildercamp.com.